Kamala Harris is saying that she supports ending the filibuster if that's what it takes to make sure that the protections previously provided by Roe v. Wade can once again be provided by the federal government. And some of those in the Senate who have worked long and hard to make sure that the filibuster is there, to make sure that nothing actually ever happens, are not happy about her new position on this. And so I want to remind everyone of why we're having this fight in the first place. Many of you might be new to watching politics. Many of you might not live in the United States, and you might think, well, if she's the president and if the Democrats control the House and if they have more than 50 senators, then can't they just pass a bill that does this? Well, no, that's not how it works. That's how it's supposed to work, but that's not how it works, because we have a thing called the filibuster, which for a couple centuries, I guess, was a last ditch effort to allow the minority, if there's enough of them, to stop radical action from happening, okay? At a cost, potentially, because to filibuster, as immortalized in movies like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, is to grind to a halt the function of government so that nothing can happen, okay? And that's how you stop it. And if what you're doing, if what you're blocking would be popular and you're blocking it, but then there's a cost to that because you're standing there and you're talking and you're reading Dr. Seuss and you're doing whatever you're doing. But not anymore. That's not how it works anymore. Now, it's just everything is automatically filibustered unless you have 60 votes. That's not technically how it's supposed to work, but that's what has happened to the Senate and the media, whose job it is to make clear that this is radical every time that it happens, just does not do that anymore and hasn't done it for years. And so now you effectively can't get almost anything done unless there's like massive bipartisanship behind it. And you might think, well, good, that stops radical things from happening. No, when I say that like we need a huge number of the other side to cross over, not because the thing that's being debated isn't popular enough, it has no matter whatsoever how popular it is. It's just down to the politicians, and that obviously needs to change. And so here is Kamala Harris talking about how they might change it for this particular topic. She was speaking to Wisconsin Public Radio, and she said, I've been very clear. I think we should eliminate the filibuster for Roe and get us to the point where 51 votes would be what we need to actually put back in law the protections for reproductive freedom and for the ability of every person and every woman to make decisions about their own body and not have their government tell them what to do. Now, of course, Republicans would hate this, not Republican voters. Many of them want these protections to be in place, but Republican senators hate this and others do. We'll talk about Joe Manchin in a second.
A storm is tearing up the digital media industry. Only our audience can save us in these difficult times. Help us reach our goal of 100,000 new members at tyt.com/team.
I'll just briefly say that if the cover story for Donald Trump and the Republicans is we've just given this back to a vote of the people, okay? Well, first of all, you already know full and well that polls show that people want these protections, so why would you be opposed to this? But even if that's not enough to convince you, okay, well, now she's saying if we take over the Senate, we're gonna do this. Hypothetically, a whole bunch of Democratic Senate candidates could come out and say, well, if we get elected, we're gonna do this. And now it's to the people. The people, if they choose to give the majority to the Democrats, know what they're giving them the majority to do. So why would you block it in that case? After all, the only thing that matters is that it's up to the will of the people. But of course, that's not how they're going to see it. And so before we jump into our discussion, as I said, Joe Manchin, not a fan of this. He is a massive defender of the filibuster. For on the one hand, reasons he would tell you are his reasons, and then the actual reasons being rich people don't want legislation to be easy to pass because legislation costs money, money requires taxes, and they don't want to pay them. That's it. That's spark notes for why our democracy works the way it does now. But he said about Harris, shame on her. He's retiring, by the way, to go make millions of dollars in the private sector. She knows the filibuster is the holy grail of democracy. It's the only thing that keeps us talking and working together. If she gets rid of this, then this would be the House on steroids. Okay, he says now he would not back her for president because of this. That ain't gonna happen. I think that basically can destroy our country, and my country is more important to me than any one person or any one person's ideology. I think it's the most horrible thing. And let's just focus, Sharon, on it's the only thing that keeps us talking and working together. Who's working together exactly? What is I mean, it stops legislation from happening. Is that work? Are you guys talking? Well, what are you talking about? You're talking about campaign donations? Because you're not talking about legislation because legislation is effectively impossible in all but the most rare opportunities. So what do you make of all this?
Some people felt like it was a mistake for Kamala Harris to step into this. Number one, I think Joe Manchin is bitter. He saw the writing on the wall a long time ago, and he knew he was going to be on the outside looking in. And as you mentioned, he's going to make millions of dollars. But the other point I think you make is correct. The filibuster was taken, corrupted long ago, and used to just stall progress, stall the implementation of the things that the American people want. It doesn't work anymore. And I don't know why we're so stuck on things that don't work. We have a different political landscape. The things that we thought were terrible 20 years ago pale in comparison to what's going on right now. So I think this is crazy. And I don't think he wanted to support Joe Manchin, Kamala Harris anyway. I mean, you saw how he talked about wanting to jump into the race as if anyone wanted him. He loves the filibuster because it kept people like him and Sinema relevant and kingmakers. And they love to party with everyone and then be invited to all these cocktail parties and have lobbyists and everybody else give them tons of funding. So I don't really, well, who needs his vote? I know every vote counts, but I would wear it as a badge and say, aha, I'm finally rid of him.
Yes, exactly. I don't know that she will, unfortunately. Joe Biden used to try to work with him. Maybe she'll be a little bit different in that. His position, so this is for longtime viewers. His position on the filibuster and the position that the filibuster holds goes to like the main thing that I think people who haven't followed politics for long need to know about American politics. I'm going to say what it is in a couple of minutes, but I want to give people watching live an opportunity to predict what point I've made many times I'm going to make. And it's something that you wouldn't think with the way that media talks about politics, but is one of the fundamental truths of our political system. So that's coming in a couple of minutes. I just want to mention that Trump chimed in on this, okay? He said, congratulations to Senator Joe Manchin for not endorsing radical Kamala Harris because of her death wish for the filibuster and the rule of law. What does that have to do with the rule of law? Literally at all. Joe knows that only the 45th president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, can protect our country, our people, and make America great again. So first of all, he didn't endorse you doink. He's just not endorsing her. Also, he's terrible. Why would you want his endorsement? And what do you mean, congratulations? He didn't achieve something. He didn't accomplish something. He stood up for the rich. And I guess you're one of the rich and you love the rich. So I understand why you like this, but I don't think it's worthy of congratulations. But anyway, he was not the only one. Where a Joe Manchin exists, Kyrsten Sinema is not far off. She said, to state the supremely obvious, eliminating the filibuster to codify Roe v. Wade also enables a future Congress to ban all abortion nationwide. What an absolutely terrible, short-sighted idea. So look, she is not 100% wrong there. She's awful. So yeah, in theory, they could do this to ban it. Kyrsten Sinema, reminder, they're talking about doing that already. They've already banned it in broad swaths of America. They've already done that. Where were you for all of that, by the way? Women have way less rights than they did earlier in your career. And the only thing you seem to be bothered by is the idea that somebody might do something about it. And I will remind everyone, were they to then in the future take control of the government, I would say one way to avoid having Republicans take control of the government is for the Democrats to actually accomplish something when they're in control. That's a great way to remind people of why they should keep you in power. With Kyrsten Sinema's strategy, we just flip-flop every 4 years because nobody does anything, and so people are constantly frustrated. But were they to do that in the future, Kyrsten Sinema, would there perhaps be a political price to be paid for that? Because again, although you don't seem to acknowledge this, banning it nationwide is wildly unpopular. Can I just bring up a pointless thing? Just everybody, if you're watching this, if you're Kyrsten Sinema and you're watching this, if we were to put it to a national vote right now, which side would win? Does anyone doubt that? Does anyone doubt that if you were to put it to the people and say, should you have the rights that you had under Roe or not, that the rights under Roe would win? Obviously. So can we have that nationally? No. Nope. You just can't. You can't do that. Doesn't even matter if you elect Democrats, I guess, because some of them will try to undercut it. Now, obviously, Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin will be gone, so we don't have to worry about them. We'll see if anybody takes their spot. But I love the fact that the will of the people, which keeps getting invoked, should have no effect whatsoever on what actually happens legally, Sharon. I think that's an interesting element of this.
I think what you laid out makes perfect sense. And I also think that, listen, these are the same people who have their dear leader telling us that, look, you'll never have to vote again. So I don't know why she's chiming in as she's collecting millions of dollars on this issue and why she's so hell-bent. Preach to Mitch McConnell and the others who have done what they've done over the past decade to pretty much ruin us, to ram through these, far right activist, dishonest people on the Supreme Court. All the things they did, it's just coming to a head. And you're right. If we were to have a national referendum, it's quite obvious. Even the women Republicans for Harris, okay? People don't like this. And they're clapping back.
By the way, can we bring up this chart to show, because we've been talking about how this is now filibuster is just automatic. And here are the numbers. This is just going back to 2001. We have, I'm not good at math, 4 times as many as we used to. By the way, that hides how bad this is, because the thing is, like, you have these filibusters when someone tries to pass something. But does anyone doubt that in a environment where everything is automatically filibustered, nothing happens, less is even being attempted to pass? So I would argue it's even worse than these numbers. And that only goes back to 2001. I looked it up back in 1969. Nice. There were 7, just 7. You go back even further. There are years where there were 0. No filibusters whatsoever. And now it's just automatic. It's so automatic that the media doesn't even report it as a filibuster. It just says legislation doesn't have the 60 votes needed to pass. And I know a lot of people are probably going to the Constitution like, that's not what it says at all. No, it's not. But that's just the way it works. And the media is an accomplice in that. Because of, and I will now make my quick point, the fundamental asymmetry in American politics. You have tools like the filibuster, not just the filibuster, the Electoral College, the composition of the Senate, all of that designed to make it so almost nothing happens. And people who are new to politics and people from outside this country might think, well, it's stupid to say that rich people wouldn't want anything to happen. I mean, I have things that I want to happen. The opposite side has opposite things they want to happen. The right wants right things to happen. The left wants left things to happen. No, that's not true at all. They have things that they campaign on, and they have a few things they want to get done on the right, generally tax cuts. Other than that, they would be perfectly happy if nothing at all happened, because they've already won. They've already gotten what they want. They're already reaping the benefits of the business deregulation, the low taxes, the basically non-existent corporate taxes. That's the stuff they truly care about. They already got it over the last 50 years, and now they just want to maintain the stranglehold that they have. The status quo already benefits them. They're happy to have a system that doesn't function. It is only the people who desperately need things to change that need the system to allow for change. Those who've already won don't need it anymore. And so if you're just catching up to American politics now, understand, we are not 2 equal and opposite sides fighting on an even playing field, like play field or whatever. They've won, and we're climbing the hill to try to get what we need out of government. Thanks for watching our video. Did you know that you can support our show by becoming a subscriber? Just click the subscribe button and also ring the bell so that you get notifications when we're live or when we post new content.